Okay, all that's done. I have updated everybody and everything going on. Cat's out of the tree. The well is not working. I wish we had running water. And we have air conditioning. So everything's peachy keen, right? Like, a 2 out of 3 is not bad. But, okay, so recently the ADL made a video about Hasan Piker, which is kind of interesting. So for those who don't know, the ADL is the Anti-Defamation League, and they have a bit of a mixed method of taking care of things on the internet. They seem to be fairly okay in some respects at being able to identify when people are being shitbags on the internet. And then they clip-chimp Hasan. So, okay, let me give full disclosure here. I'm not a Hasan fan. I have never spoken to Hasan. I don't watch Hasan's content. But I am friends with Vosh, and I do have a history of watching his content before, and maybe like the odd video now. And I know that they are very, very similar people in terms of how they use their rhetoric. Very, very abrasive, very, very like aggressively to the point, and they make a lot of enemies. Both of them do. In my history of seeing Vosh's content, I have seen how easy it is for him to get clip-chimped, and when I am on my own stream, there have been people who have warned me when I say certain things that I might get clip-chimped myself, and that would be bad. Now, for those who don't know what clip-chimping is, do you remember ages ago when I did mostly atheist content, and one of the main tools that apologists would use to try to disprove evolution would be not to utilize the scientific method to show that evolution was wrong or bad or what have you. It would be to quote mine people who were known big names in the research or history of evolution as a science. And they would quote mine these people to try to argue that they knew what the person meant. And usually, if you looked at the expanded quote for anything that any person that Kent Hovind or Ken Ham, for instance, would try to argue was being particularly anti-evolution, while supposedly being a person who cared about evolution as a theory, they almost always took them terribly out of context. And not in the sense of, like, you're taking the Bible out of context, because when it comes to the Bible, neither you nor I can have a perfect understanding of what the context was for somebody who said something 2,000 years ago. But when it comes to somebody who lives right the fuck now, it's very easy to get context for what people are saying. Now, I say all that as a preamble so that you kind of know what's going on with this particular video, because you're going to hear a couple things that are ridiculously yikesy, but the thing you're not going to hear is any of the surrounding language around it. And I think that that's really, really interesting. And there is an argument to be made about how that can be necessary for certain forms of content. If you are having a preamble to a larger video on a subject, then certainly that is a necessary way to edit things together. If you are making a video for short form content, that is a necessary way to make that medium function. However, I feel like maybe that's more of an argument against short form content than it is anything else. That said, let's go ahead and watch the video together, shall we?
I don't know who Hasan Piker is, and at this point I'm too afraid to ask.
Well, let's begin with that statement. Just that little statement right there. If you say you don't know who somebody is, but you say that you're too afraid to ask, then you've basically begun the conversation by saying that the last thing you want is context. If I say, I don't know who Nick Fuentes is, but at this point I'm too afraid to ask, despite the fact that that is a perfectly reasonable position for a guy who's the leader of an army of fucking neo-Nazis that call themselves groypers and collectively really struggle to find dating partners. Yeah, it's perfectly reasonable to say that you'd rather not learn about the inner bowels of that particular culture. But to just sit there and say that you don't want to find out that those bowels even exist in the first place means that you're just going to exist in a world where you lack knowledge and you operate as if you have it. Anyway, let's continue.
Let's just let him do the talking.
You support terrorism, question mark?
America deserved 9/11.
So hold on a minute. You notice that he's wearing two different shirts there? That's so weird. Isn't it weird that in both of these clips he's wearing different shirts? Almost as if The question of do you support 9/11 or do you support terrorism and the answer of America deserved 9/11 don't have anything the fuck to do with one another at all? That's weird. That's a strange way to edit that together. Nami, thank you for resubscribing. Now, again, I am not a Hasan fan. I can't give you the context for this. I can't. And I don't really plan on doing the research into every single one of these clips to find the context to provide a defense either for or an attack against Hasan. I just want to analyze the technique here and show you how it can be used to be fairly dishonest. Whether or not they're actually dishonest, well, I implore you to go do the research. Go look at these clips, figure out the videos that they are from, and see what the surrounding context is for them. I have not, but again, in my time of being a friend of Vosh's, I have seen him get clip-chimped out of context a lot, really badly, so my experience is that this is just what you have to deal with at certain levels of fame. Anyway, the America deserved 9/11. How many ways can we talk about that? Well, America's been at war for all but 15 years of its time in existence, and we've utilized our soft power for good and bad, and we've utilized our own imperialistic tendencies for bad quite a bit. An argument can be made that attacking America in some way, shape, or form is the only thing that some countries that we have put under our thumbs feel like they could do or should do. Now, does that mean that we should be okay with civilians being killed? Fuck no. Absolutely not. So, on the one hand, I can look at this statement and go, well, yeah, there is an argument to be made here. On the other hand, I have to look at the statement and go, but if America were to bomb, say, a school in Iran, I'd freak the fuck out and say that you don't harm fucking civilians and children and old people and everybody else. People who never signed up to be in an armed conflict. So that leads us with the third question. Okay, is there any other context for this particular statement there? Because if the statement on its own has a very weak argument for protecting it or defending it and a fairly decent argument for it being a terrible fucking thing to say, the last statement would be, well, what's the surrounding context?
Therefore, I would vote for Hamas over Israel.
Interesting. That's interesting. Let's hear that edit together.
Piker is, and at this point I'm too afraid to ask.
Let's just let him do the talking.
You support terrorism, question mark?
America deserved 9/11, dude.
Therefore, I would vote for Hamas over Israel.
Again, I want you to note how deliberate the editing is here. And again, if we were talking about the Hamas over Israel thing, let's quickly take that just on its own. Again, Israel is a nation that is currently involved in an active genocide. Hamas is an organization that gained power in Palestine for, what was it, like 30, 35 years ago? I may have the history a little off on there, but they gained power because people in Palestine were tired of being killed or strangled by Israel. If your choice is the oppressor and the unlawful vigilante group that gained power because of the oppressor, either answer he gives here is bad. Either one of them is bad. No matter which one you choose, the answer is bad. Do you choose the genociders or do you choose the terrorists who were created because of the genociders? Which one do you get? And in both scenarios, you are the bad guy. There is no answer here that is a good one.
Every single time.
Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization. I don't have an issue with them.
We think
Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization. I don't have an issue with them. Okay, that statement as well. Without looking at surrounding context, how would one make that statement and how would one defend that statement? And again, in the edit, why is that statement being played directly after the I would support Hamas over Israel? Well, again, Hezbollah being a paramilitary organization that forms because of Israel's influence in the Middle East, at some point you have to ask yourself which one of these is the cart and which one of these is the horse.
Houthis, Ansar Allah is doing what Houthi would do.
My favorite flag, Hezbollah. Look it up.
My favorite flag, Hezbollah, look it up. Okay, cool. That's not a statement in favor or against Hezbollah. That's not a statement in favor or against Hamas. If the question isolated, which is the only way we can evaluate it because it's been clip-chimped together, is what's your favorite flag design? Okay, cool. Then that's the one you've got. Now, granted, I recognize that that can be a weak defense because the context of this could be him saying, oh no, I like the flag because of the things it represents as well, in which case, the minute somebody says that they don't like the Nazi party, but they think that the swastika flag was really cool and based, you would give them a side eye and you'd go, actually, maybe you did like the party. Maybe that is where you're at right now. Actually, maybe you're lying a little bit about the first statement, and the second statement's telling you a lot about who you are.
You are anti-Semitism.
The past 38 days, Operation SC Fury has been continuing.
A nation entirely comprised of messianic, inbred, ultra-Orthodox psychopaths. Why you not?
Okay, so the fucking Gen Z bomb sound effect in between everything that was said there's no context for that. There's no context for that statement whatsoever. The only thing that you can say, looking at that statement, is, okay, his opinion on the people who are in charge of Israel is that they are psychopathic. And considering the body count of the people who are in charge of Israel, that's a perfectly reasonable statement. Zorfire says cutting like every 2 to 3 seconds, holy smokes. Right, it's aimed at people who lack attention spans. I say, as I'm opening up my phone, granted, to see if the people who are supposed to repair my well are coming soon. to take care of my water so I can actually, take a shit and shower in my own home. But irony aside, this is edited so that the people who lack an attention span and refuse to do any research feel like they get bombarded with enough information to make a decision about an individual. I could do this type of clip-chimping about damn near anybody and turn them into a monster, so long as they had spent enough time on camera such that I could take that information and do it. And if I'm paid to do it, then I could spend a lot of time doing that because it's my paycheck at that point. It's my job. I can spend any amount of time doing my job if I'm getting paid to do it.
Israel to specifically understand exactly how Nazi Germany got to that position. That's where Israel is. You shouldn't even let someone be.
So, what's wrong with that statement? I don't see what's wrong with that statement. Nazi Germany was a nation that engaged in ethno-nationalism and engaged in an active genocide about it, in regards to a people that existed within what could be considered their borders. That's what Israel's doing and has been doing to Palestine. I don't. What's wrong with that statement? What's the problem there? Wouldn't it be really funny to see exactly how much money the ADL gets from Israel? That would be interesting. Anyway, do you guys know about AIPAC and how much money AIPAC spends in influencing American elections? Anywho.
The local dog catcher as if they've ever exhibited any sort of positive feelings about the state of Israel.
It's gotta stop there, right?
Bro, what rapes did Hamas do? Any other black folk want to engage in radical activist language in this chat? Who is you harder? America or fucking Ho Chi Minh? Suck my old lady.
Okay, so a streamer decided to say edgy things. Like, that's the end result there. How many times have you played a video game on the internet and somebody has said some variant of suck my dick, I fucked your mom, something like that? I'm not saying we should go back to the time where slurs were thrown around like candy in the COD lobbies, but I am saying that there is a contingent of people who should have grown up in the fucking COD lobbies so that they could at least have developed a thicker skin about shit like this. People clutching their pearls because somebody said the word bitch or somebody said the phrase suck my dick or anything like that. I'm sorry, I cannot care about that. There's so many things that I could criticize Hasan for if I watched enough of his content to generate an opinion. I could do that. I don't want to because I don't find his content engaging. The times that I've watched it, the like 1 or 2 times did not give me an incentive to watch further. But I can recognize a hit piece when a hit piece is being made with no other context given at all. And that seems to be what's happening here. Hummus is hummus. Jesus fucking Christ. Now, it should be noted that anybody that could give context to this at all cannot. I am not saying that every person who blocks replies on a tweet has something to hide. I'm not. And I'm not saying that anybody who turns off their comment section on YouTube is trying to make it so that further context cannot be provided by anybody else. I'm not saying that. There could easily have been a bunch of shit for brain shit stains coming in, and even groypers, because groypers are anti-Israel because they're anti-Semitic, not because they're anti-Zionistic, and they could easily be coming in here and making this entire place stink up to high heaven because none of them shower. It's entirely reasonable to shut off comments if that is what you're being bombarded by. But I do think it's really interesting that those comments are being shut off. I think that's kind of funny, actually. And I'm not the only one who has noticed that specifically, because Mehdi Hasan, if you remember, who was on Jubilee as the liberal against a bunch of conservatives, one of the many times that they've done that, he's got some words to say about this too. I just really quickly need to find them, because I remember seeing them and I didn't save them. There we go. I found it. Took me a second here. But pointed out the ADL, which defended Elon Musk's salute, the Hitler salute, the one that, if K Fox would like, she could put up here in video form.
Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
Has never made videos like this about right-wing actual anti-Semites, but it is currently obsessed with Hasan Piker. Now, why would the ADL be doing this? Well, because the party in power, not the Republicans, but the Democrats, they're not in power right now in that they have a lot of seats and can, fight back against the Republicans in Congress. They don't have that quite yet. But what they do have in terms of being a party is they are the other party with money. They are in league with money. And it's really interesting to me that within the Democratic Party, when people like Chuck Schumer or Gavin Newsom are basically throwing trans people under the bus, we get people like Sarah McBride, a trans woman, saying that, well, we need to just accept that not everybody on our side is going to be perfect. And that would be a reasonable statement if that was not the side that was also doing this shit, because I guarantee you that the ADL is more in league with the Democratic Party at large than they are with really that much else. Then again, we can guess a little bit of that because ADL Israel is a thing. Just throwing that out there. While I don't have evidence that these two organizations, the Democratic Party at large and the ADL, have their dicks twisted up in a bro shake, I do think it is super interesting that they are going after Hasan when Hasan represents the most famous person on the left that streams about leftist politics, but is generally not on board with the greater Democratic Party. Alpha says, so you're saying ADL is a Democratic Party bootlicker? I don't know. It is an assumption of mine based on the evidence that is here, but I don't know. But it is interesting that they are going after Hasan when ultimately he is a streamer with a fan base of people who are left and, generally speaking, like to primary Democrats out of their fucking positions of power and instead put people from, say, the DSA in those positions of power. I just think it's really interesting that the guy who has the biggest subscriber base that can unseat Democratic power, not democracy the concept, but Democrats the party, that the ADL is going after him. And they are doing so with, let's go ahead and call it what it is, a very dishonest clip-chimp montage. Because that's what it is. For every single one of those statements, there may or may not be context that can clarify what those statements mean. But I'm not giving that information in there. You're not giving it. And even if they have, because I know they have an article that they wrote on Hasan Piker as well about extremism in the left. I know that they made that. And that this is the video that they are using to promote it. But like how the title of anything that you make on the internet matters when you're a news organization, because the title is the first thing most people are going to see when they are sharing it around on fucking Facebook, most people aren't going to read the article. Most people are going to see this presentation. this very dishonest presentation. Because the question that you have to ask yourself when looking at the presentation is, well, what emotion are you supposed to be feeling? Because I think it's fairly obvious the emotion you're supposed to be feeling is that Hasan's not a good person. And I don't know if he's a good person or not. I don't care, truthfully. It's not something that matters to me. I care about utility. And as far as I'm concerned, anybody who has the power and influence and uses that power and influence to take bog standard shit for brains Democrats and get them primaried out and replaced with people who are further left and actually give a shit about you, me, and other members of the fucking proletariat, as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather that person on my side than making an enemy of that person. That feels like a stupid bridge to burn, unless my goal was to maintain the status quo of power that got us into this shitty fucking situation in the first place. There are certainly arguments to be made about him not doing enough research on the things he says. There are arguments to be made about that. Perfectly fine. Same with me. Same with anybody else who is a streamer who talks about this stuff in a very unprofessional manner. Orla says, to be fair, I wouldn't say the Democratic Party in America is actually left. Congratulations, Orla. You've made the observation that everybody has made very easily and very quickly over the last 10 years. Welcome to the club. Everybody here in America who has spent any amount of time in politics can tell you that the Democrats are center-left at best, and they are terrified shit-stainless about moving further left, because the further left you go, the less money you can consolidate. My advice for anybody here is look for the context for those clips if you really want to know whether Hasan is super shitty or super not. From my perspective, he seems to be in a position to unseat power, and the power that he seems to be unseating is the power that I directly have problems with, because I do not like being stuck in a situation where I have to vote between the lesser of two evils, because it ultimately means I have to end up voting for evil a lot more than I'd like. I will turn up my nose and do it when I have to, but if more of us are operating such that I don't have to do that in the future, boy howdy, that sounds fucking fantastic to me. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.